Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Morning, madam. Good morning.
Good morning. So, welcome to day 2 of the program. So, how are you all feeling?
Thank you,
How are you
madam.
all
Doing well.
doing?
Thank you.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. So, the PPT that we had for yesterday's class, the questionnaire, and also the PPT of this class, I'll be sharing you this afternoon. Okay. So it's just before lunch, and let me see. To the possible extent, I'll keep you engaged and interesting. Okay. So what is the topic for this class, for this session?
Perception, I think.
Perception. So
Yeah.
perception. Yeah, it's perception. Yes. So this is something essential and important in two perspectives. One is to improve ourselves, and the other one is to know better about the others with whom we are interacting. So many a times we are bound to judge people based on their appearances, or based on how they talk, or based on the information that we have heard about them. So with all those, we have created an illusion or a picture of this is how that person will be or is, but that need not necessarily be right at all the times. And at times when we have created such illusions within ourselves, it could lead to grave mistakes, irreversible, permanent damage it could create on the relationship that we have with them, or in the lives of either our lives or in their lives. So, but we have been brought up in an environment where and we have been brought up in an environment, I will even say we have been trained to look at things not the way as they are, but with our own filters, I would say. So let us see, like, what is that we need to do to change that a bit, so that we can have good relationships, good networking, and have a better life and lead a better life. So in that context is what we would be discussing about perception. So is that fine? Shall we go ahead with this session? So we will just like how I have planned this, we will just look at what perception is, and then we will have a small case or a caselet or an activity, and then we will go ahead with little more topics which are related to that, points where we need to be a bit careful. So perception is it's a process that happens within our mind. We call it as cognitions, And as individuals, we look at things and we interpret them through our sensory organs. Say it could be our eyes, all the sensory organs, and through all this process, we try to give a meaning to the environment in which we are, or we see the environment we see. That would be a better word. So we tend to utilize when we are looking at and when we are trying to associate or identify, to the possible extent we try to utilize all the sensory organs. Sharp eyes, nose, ears, skin, thing. We keep it like as they are at their best in looking at, in gathering information, processing, and so that together is what we we create a picture within our mindset. This is the place where I am. So in the process where we gather information through our sensory organs and combining all the information that we have gathered, the process that happens within our mind, there are a number of filters that get applied automatically. And because of those filters, we miss small things, we miss big things, we miss nice things. At times, we miss also bad things, which it's good that we have not noticed it. So that is a very, very complex process that happens within our mind, and no computer will be able to map it or say this is how this information, when we combine together, this is the image we create, or this is the picture we get about the environment. And more important that we will have to remember is people's behavior. The way how we behave, it is based on our perception, how we have understood or how we have interpreted the environment, which need not necessarily be the reality. Because when we start interpreting, we interpret things in our own ways. And when we interpret that, there could be a gap between what we have seen, observed, and how we have processed it, and what the reality is. If the gap is less, it's good. But if the gap is wide, at times it's good, at times it's as bad. So the world, how we perceive it is important, and how we people or behave, that is also equally important for us to understand. So perception, in short, to say, perception is how do we infer or interpret things, people, or the environment around us through our cognitions. That's what we can put perception as a nutshell. And what I perceive by looking at something is likely to be different from what another person is likely to have a feeling within them when they look at that. So it varies from person to person based on the knowledge that they have, the experience that they have gained over the years, the positive as well as the negative experiences they have gained over the years. All that is involved in the process of perception or perceiving. So I thought we will just go ahead with this class with a small caselet. You can call it as a caselet, as an exercise, an activity, however we want, we could name this, because it will fit into all these contexts. So, and the name for this activity or the caselet or the situation, the scenario, what is being presented is the nuclear bubble. So I could not make it short to one slide. So it runs through 2 slides. So maybe I'll just leave it for you to read the information that is there. And once if you are done with the first slide, we will go to the rest of the information relating to this scenario that is presented. The slide, the second slide. So once if you have completed reading the first slide, please let me know so that I can navigate to the next slide.
Completed, ma'am.
Yes. Shall I navigate to the next slide?
Yeah, okay.
Yes, madam, you can.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, madam, you can.
So this is the rest of it.
Okay, ma'am. Finished.
That's it. So just one question I have. So we have 5 survivors, right? Whom do you think it would be appropriate to let inside the dome? Who should be permitted inside the dome? Who should be permitted inside the dome? Okay, let me put it this way.
Farmer, I think.
Should one among the 5 survivors be permitted inside the dome? If so, whom would you recommend and why?
I recommend farmer.
Farmer. Okay. Why? Why?
I recommend pregnant woman, madam.
Answers are fine, but
There is a possibility
reasoning
of
why? That's more
survival
important.
of 2 lives over there. In case of pregnant woman,
For
she
survival
and
of who makes it.
she and her
Okay.
womb child, possibility is there for survival of 2 persons over there.
Okay.
The remaining case,
On the,
farmer, maybe I think one can try in the
yes,
farming.
sir.
So preferably pregnant woman, because I think 2 lives can be saved.
2 lives can be saved. Okay. Any other views?
Can I answer?
Yes, yes.
Hello? I
Yes.
think pregnant women will be more suitable to be sent inside the dome because I think she is the weakest one among the everyone because she is holding a
Okay.
child in her belly. So others can
Okay.
still have the courage to bear all these radiations and all and can have a fight with the external environment. But I think the pregnant women is very weak to bear all these things. So I feel my vote goes for pregnant women.
Okay. Okay. Any other views, friends? So farmer and 2 of you have mentioned it should be the pregnant women. So 58 of us are still remaining to put forth their views. Okay, so another 3 more. So all of you are pregnant women. Okay. We all belong to the academia. So none of you are supporting a teacher. So is that, shall I take that all of you are supporting the view of letting in the pregnant women inside the dome? Life always takes priority. So any other views on this, friends? Any other views?
Yes, ma'am. I am in my perception. I wanted the last survivor who's having weapons and who's a specialist in it. He may get chance.
He may be given a chance. Okay.
Yes, given a chance so that he may help others.
Okay. Life is unpredictable. Okay. There is nothing
Madam, is
like
there any
right
possibility to
or
share the
wrong.
resources for all?
Any possibility of?
Sharing the resources for all. Sacrificing, that means each one of them, the existing team and as well as the newcomers, they can reduce their consumption and they can survive.
We can survive. Okay, share the resources. Okay, fine. Okay. That could be done with all the 5 survivors. That could be done. Sharing of resources, it could be done with all the 5 survivors. It could be done with all the 5 survivors, but at the reason that each one of you have been giving, it is different.
22,000 कटलेले तुमचे 22,258 कटलेले माझं नाही बरोबर आहे
Mr. Yogesh,
44 अच्छा
I request you to
असं एक मिनिट चुकलं का मग
mute your microphone. Thank you. So, maybe 7 of you were supporting the pregnant women.
22 हे बघ सपोज तुमचं या महिन्यात सपोज मागचं टाकलंच नसतं तर तुमचा पगार निघाला असता 22,342 रुपये.
Mr. Yogesh,
अरे हा वचर झाले बरोबर.
Mr. Yogesh,
कुठे ऍड करू लक्षात टाकतो ते सुटून गेलं बरोबर.
Mr. Yogesh,
मग बरोबर.
Mr. Yogesh, can you please mute your microphone? Mr. Yogesh, can you please mute your microphone?
नाव पाठवायचंय का त्यांचे?
So 6 or 7 of you supported letting in the pregnant women, but the reasons that you give, that you is it the same? I would like to listen to the reasons that you give. More or less
It
the
is
same.
more or less the same. Yes, yes.
More or less the same. It is to save the future generation, a new life, and then on the basis of empathy is what you would like to let them in. So is there, shall we consider that as the one that has got the maximum support? Participants, do you have any other view? So I just have a few questions relating to that. So if we are letting in the pregnant women, of course, whatever the resources that we are having, we can very well share it with them, that's fine. But by letting in the pregnant women, will the other members likely to face any problems? Will they have discomfort, or is there some issues that they are likely to face? Do you foresee any difficulties? That imagine that you are one among the 10 survivors in that doom. By letting in that pregnant women, do you foresee any difficulties in the near future? Do you foresee any difficulties in the near future? I'm waiting to hear from you all.
Yes, can be if her due date is close. If her due
Yes.
date is near there, the members can really face a serious trouble time at that moment. And moreover, the newborn also, as well as
So
the
they
pregnant
don't
lady
know
also.
if they don't have sufficient resources to take care post delivery, or the required medical supplies for them. In case of any complications, none of them are trained, or they know how to manage that particular situation. And then the place that is there inside is just sufficient for 10, and when you let her in, it's likely to become 2 more space. You need to give her that little more comfort space. The sharing, it's not that we can share food, so she needs extra supplements. Have we thought in those dimensions?
Actually, we didn't. We thought of that particular time only. That at that particular moment, if you're asking us to, to whom should be there for as a survivor, so we thought of a very short span of time.
Because empathy is what comes first. We are empathetic, and so seeing her or imagining this is what her condition is, so we just think of why not allow her within inside the doom, so that it's like saving 2 lives. Life is precious, is important, future generation, that's all fine. But it's if we were, imagine that you are a member inside, one among the 10 members inside the doom. In that situation, is it your life or the other person's life? Which is more important? Will we not become self-centered? Will we not become self-centered? So many a times we just pick up broadly what is happening around us, and based upon that is what we arrive at decisions, or we reach to conclusions. So that need not necessarily be appropriate at all the things, at all the times, because we have been grown up, we have been conditioned in such a way. That's why empathy comes in front of us. But if it was an other person, they like there were also 2 more responses, the trainer and the weapon specialist, so that he would be able to develop all those to support or to protect later a farmer, so that he would when we are safe, he will be able to grow sufficient food for all of us. So it's all depends on how we look at things beyond a particular time period, and then based upon it we arrive at a conclusion, and that is exactly what perception is, and it is likely to vary from individual to individual from different time. So when we have a clear mind, undisturbed, the way how we look at, analyze things is likely to be different. But when we are in a state of mind where we are confused or irritated, or we are tired, or we have too many things into it, then how we look at things also is likely to be different. What is important alone, we just look at, leaving out the rest. So that's how each one of us will look at things and create an assumption of this is how the other end or the environment in which, or the place where they are in, is likely to be. So this I found it something interesting. This always happens. Say when it's all the way how a manager perceives a subordinate, and a subordinate how he perceives about what he has done over a period of time. So the salary, the future performance goals, need for supervisor support, performance development, career development, and past performance. 6 factors we have considered. So how often or how many instances or how frequently has the manager discussed with the subordinate about these 6 points? So they have a post-performance appraisal review. During that performance appraisal review, the manager will give a feedback to the subordinate about his performance during a particular time period, within which these are broadly the 6 dimensions that they cover into. So if you look at this figure, it has been arrived based on survey, and based on the data that has been collected, it's what they have plotted this. So the manager, most of the time, he would be discussing about what his performance was in the past. And next most discussed item would be what is that the subordinate has to do to improve his performance. What's his performance? What went right? What went wrong? What is that he need to do for improvement? But maybe the targets that he is going to set for him in the future, but very less with respect to the career development or any support or help that the subordinate is likely to seek from the superior or from the organization, and the least one happens to be salary. But at the same time, for the same performance appraisal that has happened, if you ask the subordinate to rate, so more focus would be on the future goals, the performance development, and the past performance, never ever touching upon any support or help that the manager hardly asks the subordinate any support is required or not. So the same situation, the factors remain the same, but yet how these two feel are entirely different. And if there was a third person who have been observing the conversation that was happening, and then their plot is likely to be entirely different. Because what is important from the perspective of manager is what he would discuss upon. Those things which he feels is not important for his position or for the organization as has been instructed, he would not discuss upon it. But whereas the subordinate, for him, what is important is what he will also look into, leaving out the rest. So it's likely to vary from person to person given the same context. That we need to understand. And how people perceive, it also depends on their nature. We call it as personality. So based on the personality of the individual, their perceptions are also likely to vary. So these are few factors what studies and researchers they have identified that are likely to have an influence on the perception of an individual. So with respect to the situation, it is the time and then the work setting and the social setting, the environment in which they are. And then the factors in the perceiver. So the person who is perceiving it, what is the attitude that he has? What are the motives? Does he have any motive or an agenda with him? What are his interests, the experience that he has had over the period of time, and what are his expectations? The more the expectations, the more is what we would start looking for information around us. The more the experience we have, we are likely to leave out having known this is just like any other. So these are the 6 factors that really have a greater influence on us when we are perceiving things around us. And other factors are novelty. If something is different, that's what will attract. That is what in marketing, in advertising, in promotion they use. Things which are moving, not being stationary. Those things is what will first catch our eyes. Sounds, the size. When something is small is what, if you find something is what we will be more inquisitive to look into what is that and why is it so small. And that's why they say in advertising, few words or text or context, they put it in very small words so that you put in efforts to read what it is. So the background or the color, the proximity, how close it is, and similarity. So these are the other 7 factors. So the 7 plus the 6 plus the 3, 16 factors in total are likely to have an influence on how we look at the environment around us and how we perceive things. And the attribution theory holds good or is appropriate when we are discussing about, or it gives a clarity of why and how we judge people. So our perception and judgment of others is more influenced by our own assumptions of the other person's internal state. So how we judge other person is how we have assumed the other person is, or in what physical or internal as well as the external state in which he is. Based upon that is what we have our perception and judgment. So certain things are within the person's control and certain things are beyond the control. So what are those which are within and beyond the control? It will be nice if we have a fair understanding of that. So more importantly is something which happens within us or within our control. The changes, the way how we think, the way how we behave, all those consciously we will be able to change. But on the other hand, because of external factors, when we are compelled or when we use it, we may have, it goes beyond our control, for which we will be able to do nothing. Excuse me, just a minute. Sorry. And sorry for the interruption. So certain things which we think are within our control is what we can consciously change it. And certain things which are beyond our control, we cannot, like how we have the 90/10 principle. So 90% is what is within our control, which we can change, which we can alter, which we can modify. But the 10% is beyond it. There is no use in trying to bring that 10% also within our control. And when you are judging it, we normally go in with these 3 things. Distinctiveness. So what are the different behaviors that a person has been exhibiting in different situations, and the other thing is whether how the person has been responding or reacting in same or in similar or in different situations. Is there a consensus? Is it similar? Is it to some extent? Is there a commonality? That, and whether the responses, is it the same over a period of time? Consistency. So these three things, or the factors which we look at when we are perceiving or judging people. And all these three, we gain expertise in judging with experience. It comes with experience, in short to say. And the attribution theory, so we observe, we interpret what we have observed based on the facts that we have picked up from the environment, and then we try to associate with the cause. We try to associate with a cause, or we say this is what it is. That's what attribution theory is. So the individual behavior, the distinctiveness, the consensus, and the consistency, it has high influence on the external factors and low on the internal. So, and more is we try to having understood or having judged in a particular pattern. When it is finally probed, we try to give different kinds of explanations or supporting arguments which we think will support, which we think is right according to us, which we think is right according to us. Like the example we had, the nuclear dome. So each one of us, we had our own unique way of explaining or justifying our choice. And when it comes to attributions, this perception and judgment, there is always possibility of errors and bias, because no human being or a machine can see it's free from error. And biases is the nature of human beings. So there is no escapism from these two, but what we can do is we can see where we commit error and where there is a possibility of bias and try to bring it down. So that is the thing that is internal, which we would be able to train ourselves or groom ourselves. So the first error is the fundamental attribution error. So we tend to underestimate the influence of external factors and overestimate the influence of internal factors. The example, when you all suggested that we should allow the pregnant women. So it was more of internal, our nature being empathetic, looking at the situation of that pregnant women. But we fail to understand the other factors, the external factors, that is the space that is required, the medical support that might be required for her, the sharing, you said sharing of whatever resources you have. She needs to be fed nutritionally when compared to the rest of us. So this is what is likely to happen. So we need to be rational observers, rational decision makers, and critical thinkers. So we blame people first and not the situation. Why a person behaves in a particular pattern, it could be because of the experiences that they have got over a period, or it's because of the response or the stimulus, the response for that particular situation into which they are. So before blaming people, let us think, let's just give a thought, what could be the reason why they have behaved in that particular pattern? So that will make it more sensible. And then the self-serving bias. So the success or failures what we have had over our lifetime, we related to that, and we attribute it to the external factors. So if you look at maybe your friends, or if we listen to our parents or grandparents or people who are elder, they will say, I did all these mistakes in life, so I advise you not to repeat this. I hope we have heard this advice from our elders. I could have studied better, but I did not. So it would be nice that if you study. The same thing is what we tell our children also. So these were, this I did not do well, so I did not have the required support from my parents, or the financial condition of the family at that time was not so supportive, so I was not able to. But now we are trying to provide you everything the best, so we would expect you to do your best. Do we do that? And we'll say, if at all, if I had this, I would have done this better. Just because I did not have, I was not able to perform well. So it's all like, though when it is a success, we say, I knew it will work out, that's why I did it. So you take it for your knowledge and skills. But when it's a failure, or when it doesn't work out for you, you try to blame the situation or some other person there to quote. When the missile that was launched, when Abdul Kalam was heading the space, the research center was, when it failed, he said, I take the blame. But when it succeeded, it was because of my team. So that's how it has to be. When success comes, we say, I did it. When failure comes, it's not because of me. It's all because of these factors. So we need to be able to differentiate between these two and be rational when we are judging and perceiving. And these are 5 shortcuts, mental shortcuts, I would say, that it happens within us without our knowledge. That's the beauty in that. It happens without our knowledge. So selective perception. So on the basis of your interest, the background, experience and attitudes, you just look at it and you interpret whatever is required for you, leaving out the rest. What is needed, that information alone, we pick it up. Whatever you think is not appropriate, you it doesn't attract you, it's not in, you will not look into those things. But even what you have left, things without being noticing or giving importance, even they might have important lessons for you, or points which we are likely to miss, or information, in other words to say. And halo effect. So just because they did once a mistake, you have seen them doing it, we paint everyone with the same brush. This is because based on one single characteristic that you have observed in a person, you portray or you paint the entire person to say, this is what you will talk. I know this is how you will do. So these are few things that we generally tend to do. And the third is the contrast effect. So you evaluate a person's characteristics that are affected by comparisons. So just because you recently encountered a positive or a negative effect, that you compare with the incident that is happening that particular moment, and you tend to arrive at a perception. So it's comparing an incident that has happened in the recent past with the one that is happening now. And stereotyping, like how halo effect happens, stereotyping is also mostly we land into this. So how we have think maybe depending upon the group in which that person belongs to, or we have seen him moving along, we tend to, having known about the members in the group, we might come to a conclusion or a judgment that this person is also belongs to that. Like how when a good apple is in a basket of bad apples, we also tend to assume that the good apple is also likely to be bad. And the story of the jackal and the grapes. So just because having tasted one bunch of grapes which was sour, the jackal thought that the entire grapes, that vineyard is sour. So that is stereotyping. And profiling. So this is a form of stereotyping in which you often look at one single racial factor or a trait and you do the profiling. And you say this is how that person is. We call it as profiling. Say in HR, normally when students, when they are in the final semester, or now even this they have started in schools, when they are in grade 9 itself, they tend to profile the candidate, profiling a student, where they try to find out what is his or her interest, and through a set of assessment questionnaires based upon which they say this field will be, if you choose in your grade 11 this course, it would be appropriate for you. So once they do it again in grade 12, and then they will tell, now this is what your profiling is, your interests is based upon they have their discussions what they had, or by using an assessment questionnaire, and they say when you choose this particular course in your undergraduate, it might be of use, it might be appropriate for you based on your interest cluster. Or after completing the graduation, they may say depending upon this type of job will best suit you. So that profiling need not necessarily be correct all the times, and it tends to change depending on both the person who is profiling and also the person who is being profiled. And where do we apply these 5 shortcuts in life? One is in employment interviews. The first question when the interviewer asks, and if the candidate is not able to answer it correctly, he thinks that he doesn't know. Maybe he was nervous, or he did not know, or he had some inhibitions to express it. So with that you say, okay, this is what he is. Maybe the way how they have dressed, the way how they walk in, the first sentence, the first word that they speak, or the first the answer, what answer they give and how they answer to the first question. With that they say this candidate will not fit in. Okay, call the next candidate. So this is likely to happen much in employment interviews. And in performance expectations, we call it as the Pygmalion effect. The lower or higher performance of employees reflects on the preconceived leader expectations about the capabilities. So one statement that's very common by the bosses: I expected more from you. I am disappointed. Have you come across this? I expected more from you, but I am disappointed. I thought you are more capable to do, but it's not reflecting in your work. So have you come across such statements from our superiors? Friends, yes or no? Are you with me?
Yes, madam.
Yes. So Have you experienced that? And to our students and even with our children, we say, I thought you would have scored little more. Because we always set very high expectations. Because we think we believe that we have assumed that this is the skill set, this is the capability, and so they would have or they would be able to perform better or high, much than what they have exhibited or what they have witnessed. And performance evaluations, appraisals are mostly subjective, judgmental. I don't like him, so I tend to give a low score. I like him, so though they have not done, you tend to give a higher score. That really happens. And that's why instead of qualitative appraisals, they are now moving more into quantitative appraisals. And asking them to give critical incidents, narrating why they say so or why they have rated so. And all this is likely to have an impact on the employees or subordinates or peers, our students. So it's good, it will be good that if we are able to take care of this. More important is the halo effect and the stereotyping and profiling. And selective perception, that's very difficult. Consciously, we need to work on this. And contrast, because we are, that's how we have grown. Than what we have in our hand, we always tend to look at what the other person has in the hand. So that's how we have, and always comparing. So at least not this too, the selective perception and contrast effect will not have that much effect, but the halo effect and stereotyping, the profiling, this might lead to strained relationships over a period of time. So this is what I had to share with you today. So I would now like to listen from you, at least a few of you, your experiences where we have judged a situation or a person right as well as a situation or a person wrong, and the effect of that. Yes, Sonika, we expect as per our own level. That's true. At times, though we are capable of, we tend to project it that this is what I'd be able to do, staying on the safer zone. Staying on the safer zone. Say, what they say is, commit less, perform more. What you commit less, but overperform than what you have said. So that we are always on the, we tend to always stay on the safer side.
Ma'am, but after 2 or 3 times, will they not be getting a pulse of us that she will always say like
Yes.
that, but she will always over. No. So we'll not be say if it is for unknown persons, then it's okay. But if you are working in an organization for 6 months or 1 year, and we tend to overperform, okay, and we tend to commit less, then automatically they will give a higher target. No, if I say 10, then they will say 15 because they know that I'll be able to be to that particular level. Is it not?
Exactly. Exactly,
Yes,
that
no.
they do. Maybe 2 instances, 2 chances is what they would give you. And then they will
Yes.
tell, I think you would be able to give better, and that's where your job enlargement and enrichment will come. Yesterday we discussed, no? They will
Okay,
add
okay.
more on your plate.
Okay. Yes, yes, yes. But they are going to take that in that that okay, that perception is okay. But suppose they say that they tend to estimate me as a person who is not ready to.
Sorry, I could not get you. There's some disturbance. So if I
Who
have
is shying
taken it correctly,
away,
that
not
if
changing.
will they not label you that this is how you will be? Am I right?
It's not how do they
Sorry, Kanagavalli, I could not hear you
yes,
completely.
yeah,
I think I
yes,
don't know
yes,
whether
that
it is a bandwidth problem at my
yes,
end
ma'am,
or
yes, ma'am.
your end. Your voice is broken.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, yes, yes. I can hear you now. Yes.
Okay, 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 ma'am. Yes. Yes, that is the question
But
I
this,
asked. See, suppose you see me as a person who's lazy, take up. And can I carry it?
yes, yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Yes.
Will they not be perceiving me as a person who is reluctant to take up?
Yes, it will happen. It will happen. They might
Yeah,
perceive
that
you
is.
that you are not reluctant to happen, or you are hesitant to take up additional responsibility. That is likely to happen.
Yes.
So it will always be
Yes.
better, because once if they have that impression within them, it's very difficult to change it, and you will
Yes,
have to
that's
work
what
a lot
happens
to
always.
prove. So yes. So what
Yes,
you
yes.
can, you promise, you perform, and then maybe you can say, okay, let me just give a try, but I'm not sure to what extent I'll be able to do that.
Okay, okay.
That
Okay,
will always be better.
okay.
And normally, then what we can, we will be able to stretch to 20 to 30% than our normal limits, which they tend to identify, and accordingly the targets will be set for us. Who will be able to do to those is what the work would be assigned. There could also be one set of people who might always go in for an escapism from work. That work also would be put on people who come forward to work, because for the boss, ultimately it is the work has to be done, not who did it. The work has to be done and completed. And so there will be few people where they say, I don't know how to do, or just postponing it, doing it at the last moment, it would be put upon someone else who would complete. The same thing we can also witness when we give assignments or projects to students. One or two members in the team is what will do, the rest they will try to have a free ride, and it's very difficult to pick it up. In our institution, we normally form groups. Students, we group them into different teams for each of the courses. So this time I'm handling analytics paper, and so I thought like it will be, I left the choice to the students. So you can decide among yourself, identify a comfort level, and form groups, so that my objective is each one in the group should support the other person and see that all the 5 are at a acceptable level. So that was my only condition that I gave. So when I so now what has happened is I found that these groups, what they have formed for themselves, are very collaborative. They support each other, help each other, and there might be slow learners or fast learners. That's all fine. That the collegiality within the team members has been high. But there are other groups, what we had earlier, where the pillion riders always tend to be pillion riders. They are not coming forward to take up responsibility or accountability. And so what do we do? So whoever is the leader in that particular team is what we will tell them. Why not you take your team along with you? Because we believe that they would be able to do so. So that's one difference. So Pavitra has a question. What is the difference between perception and expectation? So perception is how we look at things and how we have understood it. So expectation is how do I? What is that you want the other person to do for you, or what the other person expect, what the other person feels you would do for him or support to him. So that is what is expectation. So perception and expectation are different, but there would be linkages in the context of organization. So when I perceive, or when I say, when I look at a person, the way how they talk, the way how they have moved, based upon that, I will have, have an assumption, or I would have understood that he is very knowledgeable, very capable, and so he will be able to perform better when compared to the others. So selective. So I have not shared any screen, Harsha. So how we have observed, that leads to setting up high expectations. And we generally label people, the way they speak, the way they have dressed, this is what you will know. So that could be wrong. That could be wrong unless we talk to them, we tend to understand them, have been with them for over a longer period of time, is what you will know better about them. So when we are looking at people or the environment, let us be open-minded. Let us keep our mind open to just see things what they are, slowly assimilate, and then come to a conclusion, not arriving at immediate conclusion. So which is the major influence for perception building? Personality or environment or situation? I would say it is personality. And you have Meyer-Briggs types indicator, where Meyer and Briggs, the mother and the daughter, they have worked over a longer period of time, and they have profiled, they have identified 16 different types of personalities. It's called as MBTI. It's available on the net. You can just see it, go through it. The assessments are also available online. You can just take it to find out what type of personality you are. So based upon our personality is what we would judge things, perceive the people, the situation, everything. It's all based on the personality, based on the type we are. And personality, it tends to change little bit over a period of time, but not so much. But certain things which are very dominant, which are very strong, it will never ever change over a period of time. That becomes your trait, that becomes your trademark. This is how I am. So it's very difficult. But when you find that that is not appropriate, that is not good, then consciously we need to take efforts to change that. That's for our betterment. That's for our betterment. Or if you want, or we also have like how we have the MBTI, 16 different types of personality traits. We also have the big 5 personality traits. So if you are interested, maybe I'll share the questionnaires with you. You can take it up at leisure. But MBTI, it has to be administered by a certified trainer. It will be good if it is administered by a certified trainer. And based on the personality is what the type of job that best suits us, we would be able to identify it. And once it matches with the personality, a career, it goes well, a life, it leads to satisfaction. That's what even we discussed yesterday. So a person who is an introvert, when we put him into a marketing job, it's against his personality. So he will find it very difficult to cope up every single day. That will lead to stress within them.
Madam, can I have one question?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Just actually, I was just looking for some of the personality measurement skills or instruments. And in fact, I observed that any of the studies, we mostly try to prefer that Western context scales and all are given by those psychologists and others. But perhaps we can think about our Indian, say, there are so many sources, very good sources like our ancient scriptures and all, from where we can think about some personality skills and all. But hardly I can find this kind of stuffs. Is there any reason that why this kind of attempts are not being taken or it is not going through?
See, it's all how it has gained popularity over a period of time. It's a very well noted point, sir. Like if you look at the West, they are looking at the East. They are looking at us for a few of the best practices. They have been drawn from the Indian culture. So they say India as a rich heritage, and from that the entire world is picking up. So one is during this COVID, if you look at a few of the ingredients that we have, that's a part of our daily food. They have been hyped up, and they say these are all measures that will help you to improve your immunity and fight against COVID. But all those things over a period, we have missed it. And whatever they have done, they have worked upon it over a long period of time. It has been tested, proved, and published. And that is how it has been made popular. But whereas in India, there would have been, but it is not coming to the limelight. And we don't work on it for a longer period of time.
Actually,
just that
madam,
particular moment we have a problem, we take it, we finish it, and with that it's gone.
Yeah, actually, madam, why I'm telling this is actually I have attempted one such personality scale. It is on Triguna concept. It is on Triguna concept that Sattvic, Rajasic, and Tamasic. And from there, because food and other aspects are also there, and I guess this food, then behavior with others, this can also be the measures for personality. And I tried one skill like that, which is actually 9 to 10 dimensional skill. And I tried to find it in send it in some of the good journals. And what reply I got, it is really amazing that the reference you are taking, that is Gita and so, this is actually a holy book for a particular religion. So generalization is not possible. I don't know what kinds of stuffs they are.
So for them, they ask for reliability, validity, source, support that we will not be able to give. The authenticity of it, that we find it very difficult to get. But as you rightly said, the way how people think, the way how they eat, it all depends on the food that we consume.
Yes.
And that has been very clearly put up in our
All the scriptures and there it is in
scriptures.
Gita
They
and all
very well
the
have it. They very well have it.
Yes.
And they say normally this month, the next 30 days, they will say, they normally suggest in Hindu mythology not to have non-vegetarian food because of the climatic conditions that is prevailing, which will slow our digestion process. And so for your better health, avoid it.
Yes.
That's how it is. But since the reasoning for all those has not been listed or given clearly, it becomes difficult for us to use it for supporting.
True. Okay, madam. Okay.
So any other clarifications, friends? And critical thinking is one important skill which each one of us should practice, so that when we are perceiving, when we are reading, when we are listening, we would be able to identify the hidden information within it. We call it as reading between lines and reading between words. So the better our critical thinking ability is, the better would be the way how we are perceiving things. And so it's not so difficult. We have a number of courses on critical thinking, and critical thinking is not something new. It has been right from the period of Socrates. It is there when we read it. And so if we are able to improve the way our critical thinking skills, the way how we perceive things also is likely to become better. So any other questions, friends?
Yeah, ma'am, one question. How,
yes.
Can I? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am, how do you think the personal interviews are effective to judge a person to take for any job? Like, high level jobs like UPSC interviews, which are done only based on personal interviews. So how effective is it to judge a person within few, I mean, it's like at a glance kind of judgment you do. So how effective is it to judge a person? I mean,
so,
that, yes, he is fit for this job.
It's very true. So what they do is, it is not being judged or assessed by one single person. It is normally done by a team.
Correct.
It's normally done by a team. And the factors what they use for assessment, they have made it more quantitative than being qualitative. They use metrics. They use rubrics for assessment. So it is made more of quantitative